the most convenient way to buy a book. So anyone wanting that convenient method of getting hold of it can certainly find it on Amazon. There's a hardback, a paperback, and a Kindle electronic version. It's also on Barnes & Noble, and it's on a few other retailers as well. But if any other people want to get hold of a copy, I'm very happy to post out signed copies myself from my own personal stash. So people just have to email me, and if they can pay by PayPal, then I can send it out to them. And I've already sent plenty out to the US. So if people want to drop me an email to mark@markdevlin.co.uk, then we can make it happen that way.
I would encourage people to do it that way, please, because I am a person also who sells things, although not a book per se, but we have to start supporting each other, not these behemoths, even though it's easy and convenient to do it, and you get points on Amazon if you shop using the Amazon credit card and all of that. But please remember Mark. He is the flesh robot who woke up, and we need to buy from him. We need to keep him supported directly. So, Mark, I am going to get a copy from you directly. So put me down for one, and I will be paying you through PayPal or however you want. But I'm very honored to have had you on because you are someone, like I said at the beginning of the show, you have gone into this at the speed of light. It's amazing.
It feels that way, yeah. It feels that way to me.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you never got sucked up by the BBC and lured by contracts and incentives and goodies.
Well, I'm glad me too. I mean,
right.
the fact that didn't happen must be for a reason. People talk about things that happen for a reason. Well, certain things don't happen for a reason as well. And looking back now, what a nightmare it would have been if I got caught up at a corporate level in the industry. And it used to frustrate me because I've always been self-employed and I've never had a manager. I used to do all my bookings myself and just be on the grind the whole time. And I used to get pissed off with it and think, oh, it's so difficult, doing it this way. But it's the only way it could have been. And it's the only way I could be doing this now because if I'd been a part of some corporation and I'd come out as a whistleblower, divulging industry secrets, I would be making a lot of enemies. And, it's just a better way for it to have taken place. And I want to thank you for some interesting questions as well, Sophia, because I've done a whole bunch of radio interviews this year, probably about 25 interviews. And usually it's the same questions, tell us about the Beatles, tell us about 432 Hertz. And I'm always happy to answer the questions, but it's great to get some questions that challenge you and make you think about things on the spot. And, we've been to some sort of metaphysical, spiritual places in this chat, and that's really good. I've really enjoyed going there.
Well, you're very welcome. I mean, I just ask off-the-cuff questions, and I follow what my guest is saying, and I try to just feel my way through it and into it. And I have one more question for you, and I'm sorry, it's going to make me sound like a complete idiot, but I'll ask it. So you said you started out in the world of hip-hop.
Right.
And you said that it was quality. So I have two questions to ask. One is, why did you choose that kind of music? And the second is, did it at all start out, did they let people express real talent and quality in the beginning, and then they shifted it and they made it all demonic and dark? So answer those two in whatever order you want.
Right, well, what got me into black music generally? So I'm a DJ that's been known for playing not just hip-hop, but R&B, soul, reggae, funk, soulful house, basically forms of black dance music. And what got me into it was I grew up in a middle-class town in Oxfordshire full of white people, and I never really felt like I fitted in to school, and I never went with the latest fads and trends. I was never one of the cool kids, and I was always someone that just gravitated towards whatever everyone else wasn't doing. So I wasn't interested in being a part of the in crowd. If a fad and a trend was popular, I would be someone that would go the other way and just want to do my own thing. So because all the other kids in the school were listening to pop music generally and rock music and stuff like that, I gravitated towards this different style of music. And there was a school friend of mine that kind of got me into it. But I was always happy to kind of be on the outside of what everyone else was doing. And I suppose that, in a way, was a grounding for what I'm doing now. Because if I spent too much time worrying about what people think of me, then I wouldn't be doing interviews like this. So I'm always someone that has been happy to think for myself and make my own decisions. So that's what kind of got me into that music, really. And then in terms of how that music started out, there is a story that I relate in the book in a chapter called The Systematic Degeneration of Hip-Hop Culture. And it's based on an interview that I did with a character that is known as the Black Dot. And he is someone that has looked into the spiritual, ancestral aspects of hip-hop culture. And he's traced it back to its original African heritage. And going back to ancient times in various African civilizations, he's identified the 5 main elements of hip-hop culture that were expressed back then by the ancestors of those that eventually came over to America and brought this stuff with them. So you've got the rapping element of hip-hop, the talking element. And he says that this relates back to the storyteller, the kind of sage that would communities in Africa would gather around this individual, and he would tell the stories of their culture and their ancestors and stuff. And so Black Dot believed that the rapper, the hip-hop artist, is a modern reawakening of that concept. And, it's laid dormant in the DNA of these black people as they've moved over from Africa to America. It's been taken with them. It's part of their very fabric, And then you've got breakdancing, b-boying in hip-hop, all the crazy dancing, And he said that relates back to the African dancers, the tribal dancers that would be a part of that whole community. And then you've got graffiti art, spray cans and stuff, which is a big part of hip-hop culture. Black Dot reckons that relates back to the hieroglyphic art that was present in those African civilizations going way back. And then you've got the turntablist in modern hip-hop culture, the DJ, scratching records back and forth in a very rhythmic fashion. And that would be a modern reworking of the drummer that would keep those rhythms alive back in tribal ceremonies, And then the 5th element, which is common in both, is knowledge of self, just that spiritual component where all the other components come together in that 5th. And so his view is that the original creators of hip-hop culture back in the Bronx, New York in the 1970s were kind of channeling or reawakening these spiritual components going way back into these African cultures. And so the early days of hip-hop were very pure and meaningful in that regard, because this consciousness was kind of coming through into this new art form. And so it continued in that pure form for quite a number of years. But then as the 1980s progressed and the music form became more popular, the corporations, of course, became alerted to how this was becoming a voice for communities and certain groups of people, and they realised that it was becoming a bit too powerful, it was getting a voice of its own, it was uplifting and inspiring people, and they couldn't have that. And so that's where the corporate meddling started in hip-hop, and that's where these labels started creating certain acts and certain groups to steer the culture off in different directions. And so the lyrics became more debased, and gang banging stuff started to get into the lyrics. The advent of what's known as gangster rap, talking about criminal lifestyles and toting guns and selling drugs and all that. It started off as a kind of documentary element, so rappers would be talking about this stuff that was happening in inner city ghettos and just doing it in a very realistic kind of way. But it became sensationalist when the corporations got involved, and they started making it controversial just for the sake of it in order to sell records. And really from that point on, it's just degraded ever since, to the point now that, like I said, it's a caricature of its former self. All the prominent rappers are just corporate stooges that are doing the bidding of those that are controlling them. But it did start off in that pure way, I believe, and it was headed off at some point. And I think it's an aspect that a lot of people miss. A lot of people wouldn't consider that hip-hop had spiritual beginnings, but I really believe that it did.
That is fascinating, Mark, and very informative. I had no idea. It makes me see it in a whole new light, because it was it's just music that's very foreign to me. It was a new development. I was older when it came out, so I never really understood it, and you've really given us a great explanation. Right. So again, thank you so much, and I urge people, please get an autographed copy of this guy's book, because he's an icon himself, So thank you, Mark.
Well, very kind. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it today.
All right, and you're going to come back when you're deep into the guts of your next book. You are going to come back and start giving us a little teaser interview for that.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. There's going to be a whole load of new stuff that I could talk about then. I just wanted to mention also that I'm coming over to the US in April next year for the Free Your Mind conference, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, just outside Philadelphia. It's April 7th to 9th, and I've been at that conference the last couple of years. It's an amazing event. Awesome bunch of speakers getting into all kinds of topics. Mark Passio is there. Michael Tsarian is guesting this year. Jim Mars, Jim Fetzer, Lennon Honor, Laura Eisenhower, Michael Cremo, Jay Parker, Bob Tuskin, John Vibes, Russ Ben. Incredible speakers. So if anyone is planning on getting along to that event, I will see you there. And I'm taking a little trip to Laurel Canyon directly afterwards as well. I'm getting my arse over to LA for just about 24 hours, literally just one day. And I've managed to find somebody to give me a guided tour of all these hot spots in Laurel Canyon where Frank Zappa and Jim Morrison and John Phillips used to hang out. That's going to be amazing just to see that place with my own eyes. So definitely looking forward to that.
Well, I hope you have a great time, and I hope you take a little pebble or two back from Laurel Canyon to keep on your desk in England.
For sure.
So thank you, Mark, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
All right, Sophia, thank you very much.
Okay, no, let's see. I just stopped it. Sorry, I thought I stopped it. That was great.
Yeah, that went well, I feel.
Yeah, there's so much, this whole metaphysical thing, Mark, I am more and more convinced that is the depth of it. It really is.
It's the key to understanding why everything else takes place, I think, yeah. And like I said, there's not many interviews where I've been challenged to think along those lines. People mainly want to know the nuts and bolts of it, tell us how Britney Spears is mind controlled, that sort of thing. And I am always happy to talk about that, but it's great to get into these other realms as well, because I'm someone that spends a lot of time reflecting on all these big questions every day, to be honest. So it's always good to get the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, and I wish that we had hours and hours and hours, but we don't. And, you can't make a show that's 5 hours long. But right. I think I'm going to read your book. And so, yes, tell me what I have to pay on PayPal for this so I can send that to you and I can get my autographed copy.
Right. Well, the copies that I've been sending out to the US, they come out at, the book is £25 because it's a big book. And the postage to the US is $14. So it comes in at £39. I think on PayPal you can just specify the pounds. I don't think you have to put it into dollars.
Right, and then it does the transfer.
But that's what it is, yeah. And then I could just mail you out a copy from here.
Excellent. All right.
So you have my email address. You just need to put my email address into PayPal.
Yes.
And it finds me. But I also wanted to ask you, I know that as well as you're like me, because we're both hosts of shows, but we also talk as well. We're guests. And I know you've guested on a bunch of shows. So I was thinking of having you as a guest on my show, and I just wondered if there's any specific subjects you'd like to talk about and come on as a guest on My Good Vibrations. What do you think?
Oh, I'll definitely come as a guest, but I'm one of those jack of all trades, master of none. But I'm going to send you the newsletter I wrote. I'll send you a couple of them because I'm getting into these things that are literally keeping me awake at night because they're so fascinating. And this idea, Mark, of I'm going to send you a video on Skype, actually. I don't know if you can watch it in the UK online, but I just sent it. You know William Gensky, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Well,
I've been having some chats with him over this whole Ken O'Keefe debacle, actually, and he did mention that you'd been in touch with him.
yes, he's working with me on something, and we talk very frequently, and he's mentioned you very highly,
Right.
spoken of you highly. And I sent him, I was on the phone with him, or in Skype for an hour with him and Susie, and
Yeah.
I sent them this video that I'm sending you. And it is the dance performed by the snowboarder Amy Purdy, who used to live in San Diego, originated from Las Vegas, and lost her feet to septic shock caused by meningococcal meningitis. I wrote a newsletter on this because I started to really plumb the depths of what happens to us when we become diseased. And this dance that she does was written and choreographed to celebrate the marriage of man with machine. And when you watch it, her partner is a robotic arm called KUKA, Kuka. That's actually the company that makes it. You got to see this thing. It'll leave you kind of in shock. I have sent it now.
Right. Yeah, it's inviting me to log in to watch it. Let me just see if it's going to work. I mean, to me, the whole transhumanist thing is just a complete living nightmare. I just can't understand how anyone can consider it a good idea to be plugging implants and stuff into your body. It just dumbfounds me.
Well, the lure of it, the appeal, is on the basis of enhancement.
Yeah.
And they're lying to the public at large. I mean, they're starting with examples that are harmless, like, well, you have eyeglasses, don't you? You have sunglasses. Hey, if you sprained your ankle, you would use a crutch or a cane or something.
Right.
And these are all forms of man relying upon technology, but these are very simple forms of technology. And they claim that if we have nanobots coursing through our bloodstream, they will amplify where our own biology starts to fail. So you could be able to dive underwater and hold your breath for hours at a time because nanobots can get you to do that somehow. And this is the kind of thing that people are saying, the innocent public, because we're really dumb. Oh, wow, science can do that? I want that.
There'll be a reason, though, why, as humans, we're not supposed to be underwater for that long. And there's a reason why, if we jump off a cliff, we'll probably die. These things were put into place by the Creator. And, we came here to learn lessons and get experiences. And the world that we're born into, the natural world, is a part of that whole process. We shouldn't be trying to change it, because by trying to change it, we're implying that we're better than the Creator. We know better. The Creator was flawed, and we can do better. That's just arrogance and ego on steroids. It's just incredible to me.
Well, let me ask you a question. How old are you now, please?
46.
All right. Had we not improved on the Creator's design, you wouldn't have lived this long, because your teeth were not designed to last for this long, nor were your knees, and you should have been dead by 35. And the only reason you're alive is because of sanitation and hygiene. And those are modern implementations.
Well, they are, but they're not on the same level as electronic stuff, plugins and, things that you put into your body. Improved sanitation is not on the same level as artificial limbs and brain implants and stuff like that. That's taken it to a whole different level.
But that's the whole tendency of the human being, is to constantly improve. I mean, human beings are always looking for shortcuts for good reason. That's why they invented the wheel. They were tired of dragging and trundling stuff and ruining it on the ground. So I literally don't repeat this to the world, but I won't go to the toilet without putting on my socks at the same time or something like that, multitasking.
Right.
And that's what we do. We do this. We do this because we know that we can, and it's more efficient. And today we have more and more, stuff to get through every day.
Right.
And our survival But anyway.
I guess everyone's different because there are many people that are impressed by the latest advances in transhumanism. Clearly, I know there are, but I'm just not one of them. So it's just not me. For whatever reason, it's just not me.
Well, you have an aversion for certain things that this culture offers that you now know to be undesirable. But you worked in an industry, the recording industry, that's totally technological, right?
Right.
I mean, that was where you began. You wouldn't even have been able to listen to hip hop growing up had you not had records or tapes or CDs. Because Mark, what I've noticed, and I wrote an essay about this and submitted it to Newsweek years and years ago. Today, if you leave your house and you're humming a tune, or you even venture to sing a song, God forbid, people will make comments, nasty comments like, don't quit your day job, or they'll put their hands over their ears. They don't want to hear pedestrian singing. They are so used to ultra beautifully recorded stuff coming out of studios.
Right.
And 5 decades ago, people used to sing all the time. They used to sing while they walked the dog and showered, and they don't do it anymore.
You know what? There's a story I mentioned in the book. You know this bloody awful thing called auto-tune? Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Makes a human voice sound like a robot. And there was a phase here on TV. We got this thing called The X Factor, Simon Cowell. I don't know if he's been exported over there. God help you if he has. But it's this talent show where members of the public come up and try and impress these judges, because they want to become stars. And there was a phase where these girls were making their voices sound like they'd had this auto-tune software plugged in. So they were singing in this ridiculous fashion because they thought, well, that's how you've got to sound to have a hit record. If you don't do that with your voice, you won't become big. That's how far that particular technology had come, Isn't that ridiculous?
Right. It is ridiculous, but I am bemoaning the loss of spontaneous celebration of joy in the form of song and music.
Sure.
And it is not well tolerated in our society. And that's because of the recording industry.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I forgot to mention in the show was, as I was watching these performances last night, it struck me how pitiful it is that they managed to draw to themselves, because of money and opportunity and glamour, the best talent in everything. And then they created their noxious shit out of it. That's what makes me sad. Because, we didn't slam the Jews too much, but these are Jewish industries, the recording industry.
Sure.
And I want to just send you, if I can find it on YouTube.
I got that video, by the way, and I've downloaded it. So I couldn't watch it, but it's asked me to download it, so I should be able to see it.
Well, I want to see if Voodoo Night is on it. The most amazing. Yeah, watch that. But this is the
here, ready to
show.
watch.
Voodoo Night is not on here. I don't see it. But it is a song that was played in this Hollywood canteen. Oh, yeah, Voodoo Moon. Oh, my God. You've got to hear this. I'm going to send you this link.
Okay.
And this is YouTube. But play this now because this is right up your alley.